Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we have the first Infinity War sneak peek. First arrived from Marvel Future Fight's Twitter page, then later on Mobiroom, and then Reddit. We have this kind of 5-second clip, very similar to the ones we got in the previous update for X-Men. No sound, just a moving image, and in this case it is the AETHER, which has been retconned as the new type of, or the new name for the reality gem or stone in Marvel kind of lore, for the Infinity War, for the gems, for Thanos, for the gauntlet, for the whole shebang-a-bang. So we know for sure with absolute certainty now. I mean, we knew before because what else could it be? But now we know with the movie about 2.5 weeks out. This is, April 5th. The movie's dropping on the 26th to 27th, depending on where you are in the world. Sadly, some of the countries might be waiting a couple weeks after that, but for most people, it's at the end of April. So we're really close to the end, basically, of that wait. And so this is the first teaser of what I expect to be many teasers. Now, there's a few things I want to go through in this video. Of course, I want to speculate on what the AETHER means. And of course, I want to speculate on some of the language used in the Twitter post, because the Mobiroom post has nothing. It just says incoming transmission, pretty much useless. But Twitter does have a little bit more. On top of that, I do want to give you some tips for what you can do now, knowing that this is definitely happening in a couple of weeks. And then I also want to speculate on the idea that few people have been floating around about this third-year anniversary coinciding with the Infinity War update being split into 2 updates. So that will also kind of be important to note, because while they may tell us, it's always important to temper your expectations. And while we're all very optimistic and we're hype, we need to anticipate that maybe they're not going to be able to get everything done, because as much as Netmarble wants to do certain things for their update for the game, they're also having to follow a lot of the Marvel executives' cues from Bill Roseman and those kinds of upper management people, because this is a Marvel game and because this is a movie tie-in. So, there's some flexibility and then there's some constraints. So we do have to keep both of those things in mind, but I hope that you're hyped for this, because if you're not hyped for this, what are you going to be hyped for? This is basically the decades-long event. Since the original Iron Man movie in 2008, this everything in the past leading up to this point has been leading up to this point. The Infinity War, the final clash, the end of an era for the likes of Iron Man, Captain America, possibly Thor, and others. Of course, I'm talking MCU now, but it relates in some way to this game, because the way that the MCU gets reformed or reshaped after this movie and after the next one, part 2, will directly influence this game, because it'll still be around, it'll still be doing movie tie-ins. So it's all very exciting to see it finally start to form. So as far as the text itself is concerned, I think that it hints towards one of 2 possibilities for the introduction of the Infinity Gems into this game. Some people are speculating that we're going to be getting the Infinity Gems as literal items. I think that's essentially one of 2 options for the item route. It can either be an item that we use for our characters, so some people are saying it'll be like a new type of super rare CTP. And then the other way that it could be an item is that it could be a new form of currency or a new resource, like black antimatter, phoenix feathers, Mcron crystals, and that it would signal kind of the beginning of tier 3. Now, that's kind of a long shot, and that is a big thing to speculate on, but definitely keep in mind that I am speculating and I'm not speaking with any knowledge. It's just opinions and conjecture, but I think that's only one possibility. I think the other possibility is that the Infinity Gems aren't actually going to be usable at all in the game. And what I mean to say is that we have Thanos, we have the whole idea of him becoming Infinity Thanos in the game, but it doesn't actually affect his power level. We don't actually do anything different with Thanos, the playable Thanos. We only experience him with and without the Infinity Gems, as far as the difficulty of the fight becoming much greater. So I think in that way, if you take cues from what Netmarble has done previously with the Infinity Gems, because they've literally already used this language, we could possibly anticipate, not we can, but we could anticipate that the gems are going to be part of a new game mode or a new kind of enhanced storyline, which may involve us getting the stones or fighting Thanos to get them back from him, to kind of get his power level down and bring him down from kind of the omnipresent status that he is with all of them, but not actually something that we collect and give to our characters or use on our characters to somehow enhance their power level. So I think those are the two tracks you have to think about if you want to speculate about the Infinity Gems and what they're going to bring to the table. That essentially gives us three possibilities. However, I do want to try and talk down or debunk the idea that the Infinity Gems are going to be like CTPs. CTPs have not been around for that long. They weren't introduced too long ago, and they're still definitely making a lot of money for Netmarble in terms of the crystals, in terms of things that they can package to include CTPs in order to inflate their costs. So the Black Panther update and the Black Panther pack is a pretty good example. They lured us in with the promise or the kind of bonus gift of, after a bunch of work, of course, a CTP of refinement and a CTP of energy through the Shuri mythic uniform and the Killmonger mythic uniform. And this is something that they'd already repeated from Ragnarok, which they had wild success with, giving us, again, a CTP of refinement for Hulk's legendary uniform or mythic uniform, a CTP of energy from Hela's mythic uniform, and then something else, or the card from Thor's uniform being at mythic. So I really don't see them doing that with the Infinity Gems, because it would just undercut all of the value, and it would basically make CTPs useless, because there's no way that they're going to introduce Infinity Gems and they're not going to be at least twice as good as a CTP. If there's even some kind of comparison between the two, it would just be such an embarrassment, you know. I think that Marvel wants the magnitude of this movie to be reflected in the updates that the games have, because bad updates to promote a movie that they want to be kind of their epic conclusion wouldn't really make sense. So I am pretty doubtful that they are CTPs or some kind of custom gear, which essentially leaves them as a new resource or a new type of item that enhances our characters versus some kind of game mode. Now, the argument that I could make for whether, for the possibility that it is some sort of tier 3 material is actually quite good. And this is the part that might spook you a little bit if you don't want tier 3s, if you're not ready for tier 3s. Fear not, I'll have all the latest information and updates when it goes live, when we finally figure it out and wrap our heads around the updates. So if it is the case, we'll find the best ways and the best characters to tier 3, should that happen. But I want to refer back now to the Twitter post with the text, "Reality itself will be torn asunder." And that essentially means your reality is going to change or get ripped down and torn apart and destroyed, maybe remade. That to me, while it is simply very fitting for the reality gem, and it could be totally a coincidence, and that's just what they meant to do as kind of a cheeky reference to the Aether being the reality gem, because they're not calling it the reality gem anymore, they're just calling it Aether. But you know, the old-time comic book fans know what it's supposed to be, and they also know that the color is wrong, but I'm not going to get into that. But it is possible that reality itself will be torn asunder is the idea that the way we understand the game, the way that we understand characters and character development, and the way that we do things right now as far as developing characters is going to change dramatically. Because our reality, the game, the characters, etc., will be torn asunder. So there could be some double word play going on. It is, of course, my conjecture and my kind of imagination running away with it, but it's definitely a possibility, and it is the first one that they decided to introduce and tease for us, right? They could have gone with the Tesseract, they could have gone with the Mind Gem that's inside Doctor Strange's Eye of Agamotto. They could have gone a bunch of different ways, but they chose to go with reality first. And they definitely know by now, if you've been following on Twitter, how much we want new game modes. So it's definitely possible that this change could drastically alter the way that we use our characters, which would in turn drastically alter the game modes. It could also be that exposing the Marvel Future Fight universe to the reality gem or the ether is going to radically alter existing game modes. Maybe it's going to turn Shadowland into like a hyper infinity Shadowland with like infinite stages. I don't know. The possibilities are infinite, but I think this is kind of more along the lines of what I would hope for, but also what could be anticipated based on the language and based on the fact that this is kind of one of the more powerful effects that could happen, and that relates to what the actual gem does and its powers and the game. You know, if you think about it, for example, the time gem, what would that really, or the stone, right? What would that really indicate in this game? That farming is going to become easier or faster, or it's going to become slower and more grindy? There's really only two ways that really rolls. And then the space gem, what exactly could that mean for the game? There's not a lot of ways that you can integrate that in a logical way into a video game with space, but reality is the most plausible one, so I'm really looking forward to that one. I guess power as well, but we don't really have that one yet. It's a bit complicated. It's supposed to be red, so we'll have to wait and see. But most of all, this is just my conjecture, my opinion, my speculation. I want to hear your ideas, because that is when we are at our best, when we're excited, optimistic, a little bit realistic, and then we are kind of in detective mode, trying to decode the clues and figure out what Netmarble has in store for us and how they can bring this game back to its and restore it to its glory days. Because I, for one, and I know I speak for a lot of people when I say this, would want nothing more than to see this game return to where it was, like, you know, maybe less than a year ago, give or take. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up with your comments and thoughts down below. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me and you're going to see Infinity War when it comes out on opening night like me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.